Howard Beach friends to please the prosecutors and to save his own neck. And so, as we have reported now, the long trial over. You're looking at live pictures now at the State Supreme Court in Queens. The jury reaching a verdict this evening. We expect that announcement shortly. Their verdict will be announced as we have it. Sarah Wallace, you are now looking at the defense attorneys in that case. Sarah Wallace is also in that courtroom. We will have a live report from the Queens courthouse once she is able to come outside and tell us what's going on. Gabriel Leone has a live picture right now that we're showing to you from the State Supreme Court. He is a defendant in the case. We are going to have a live report from Sarah Wallace as she reports that to us momentarily. We are taking live pictures now. It has been a long day. It has been a long 11.5 days. Jurors have spent the first anniversary of the Howard Beach racial attack yesterday focusing on the beating of a black man who survived that incident. We understand that the verdict is being read at this point, and we are going to be standing live for that announcement as it is made available to us with our reporter on the scene. We certainly expect a lot of reaction to this story. It has been a controversial trial for some time, and we expect to have more on the story as it develops. We will have a complete report during halftime this evening, coming up during the Monday Night Football, and also a full report as we conclude our broadcast day at the end of Monday Night Football. And so once again, as we repeat to you, we are giving you information as it is available to us. We had reported that Judge DeMarcus consented, as we reported, to allow the cameras in his courtroom for this moment, the reading of the verdict. And so we do not have any microphones there. What we have are live pictures, no sound of the actual event. We're going to come back to you live with more once it is available to us, with Sarah Wallace reporting from Queens. I'm Ernie Anastas. We'll be back shortly.
By the highest courts in New York State, which will permit our cameras to show you this picture. However, we are not allowed to take any photos of the jury, nor are we allowed to have any microphones in the courtroom.
All right, Mike,
apparently the verdict for Kern has now been given, and Mary, you can see, I suppose, on the monitor there,
yes,
that at this point we're about to see John Lester's sentencing as well.
Yes, John Lester is 18 years old. He is also charged with murder in the second degree, manslaughter, attempted murder of Cedric Sandiford, assault 1 and 2, conspiracy, inciting riot. His mother is from England. She has also been in the courtroom every day. Lester is the only one of the 4 defendants who did not go home every night during this trial. He has spent the last year practically on Rikers Island. Shortly before his arrest, he had been caught with a gun. He pleaded guilty to weapons possession, and he was supposed to get probation. But when he got in trouble and he was arrested, the judge sentenced him on the weapons possession charge. He went to Rikers Island for 1 to 3 years. So he is the only defendant who has not gone home.
Mary,
we do have the first verdict right now.
Go ahead, please.
Scott Kern. On murder in the second degree, he is not guilty. On manslaughter, Scott Kern is guilty. Attempted murder in the second degree of Cedric Sandiford, not guilty. Assault in the first degree of Cedric Sandiford, guilty. Assault in the second degree for Cedric Sandiford, not guilty. Riot in the first degree, not guilty. Assault in the second degree of Cedric Sandiford, not guilty. And finally, the 5th count, the last count, conspiracy, Scott Kern is guilty.
Mary, you've been watching this trial from day one. What kind of inference do you draw from what the jury has brought back? Any reflection upon that? Short notice, I realize.
They found that Scott Kern was not guilty of murder in the second degree. Apparently, they do not feel that he showed depraved indifference to human life, but apparently they justly disregarded the life of Michael Griffith when he joined with the other youths in the chase last December 19th.
In terms of his role in this incident, where does he stand? What is he accused? You can see John Lester sitting down right now. Apparently he too has heard his fate pronounced.
Apparently now the 3rd defendant is standing up, Jason LeOne. He is 17 years old. He is charged with manslaughter. He's not charged with murder. In terms of Scott Kern's role, there was a turnaround witness in this case, 18-year-old Robert Riley. Riley admitted his guilt. He said that he was part of the gang that night, and he said that he joined with these 4 other youths and chased Michael Griffith to the barrier of the Bell Parkway at 90th Street. In return for Riley's testimony, he was allowed to plead guilty to assault. Now, he may only get probation. He could get a maximum, though, of 4 years in prison for his cooperation. Now, in terms of Scott Kern's role, Riley said that Scott Kern took a bat outside the New Park Pizza Parlor, slammed that bat on the ground and said, "Niggers, get out of our neighborhood." That's Riley's testimony.
All right, Mary, I have to interrupt you right here because we do have to break away. I should assure our viewers, however, we'll be coming back as soon as the extra verdicts come in now. We're waiting for the verdicts on John Lester, who apparently has already been sentenced, in addition to the other defendants, Jason LeOne and Michael Perrone, after that. And as soon as we have that information for you, we will be getting that information to you directly. As I say, we have pictures of the courtroom. However, under New York State's experimental cameras in the courtroom plan that's underway right now, we are not allowed to bring you the audio portion. However, as soon as we get the information, we will pass it on directly to you. Until then, I'm Mike Schneider. Thank you for watching.
A verdict read by the jurors. The People versus Michael Perrone with manslaughter in the second degree against Michael Griffith, riot in the first degree, and assault in the second degree. Perrone is the less implicated of all the four defendants. Stephen Murphy argued that Michael Perrone had nothing to do with chasing Michael Griffith to his death on the Belt Parkway, and there he seems to be showing some emotion, a sign of relief. There's just no way of telling right now until we are able to hear audio and hear what's happening inside the courtroom. Now, Michael Perrone, as I stated earlier, his attorney argued that Michael Perrone had nothing to do with chasing Michael Griffith to his death. Apparently, there is some shouting going on right now within the courtroom. This is a very tense-filled courtroom. You see security moving over. We do not know what's happening right now. There's probably some eruption going on in the courtroom, some emotional outbursts. And come to me live now. We have someone, if we can come to me live. We have some kind of melee behind us. Someone was dragged out of the courtroom physically by force. The court officers are running out of the courtroom. We do not know what's happened. As I mentioned earlier, this is a trial that Judge Democles himself has described as an emotional time bomb. He was fearful that there would be potential outbursts should cameras be allowed in the courtroom. Twice he denied news organizations for having that. We want to go back inside the courtroom right now, where we see the judge and being guarded, of course, by court officers. I must add, the security is extremely tight here. The New York Police Department has surrounded the courthouse. There is a perimeter of we have more happening outside of the courthouse. In the courthouse lobby area, I still see court officers dragging other people out. I do not know what happened inside yet. Bob Gilmartin will be out here as soon as he's allowed out of the courtroom. Someone else is being dragged out of the courtroom right now, physically taken out by force. We see the court officers putting them into another courtroom area. There must be a lot of emotion going on right now, and this emotionally charged, very tense-filled drama that's developing right before our eyes. Judge Democles again warned that this was an emotional time bomb. He was very concerned about cameras being in the courtroom. As I said, he denied cameras inside the courtroom twice. We see people coming out now, members of the media. We should have a live. Here's Bob Gilmartin with the verdict sheet, and I will read to you what.
Give that along with Scott Kern.
Sandiford, not guilty. Assault in the first degree against Cedric Sandiford, not guilty. Flipping over now on the verdict sheet to find out what the jurors also decided on the assault in the second degree. Well, it's no guilt.
In the second degree, it appears that they've gone mostly for the manslaughter and the first degree assault.
All right, thank you, Bob. And riot in the first degree, not guilty. Also conspiracy in the fifth. One of our reporters. What happened inside the courtroom? We saw people being dragged out of there. I'll get back to the verdicts later, but what happened?
The verdicts obviously disappointed the family members. It appears that LeOne, Lester, and Kern have all been found guilty of manslaughter and manslaughter, and also the charge of assault in the first degree. However, Michael Perrone has been totally exonerated. The families, of course, of those found guilty were all crying. There was a lot of outbursts. When Michael Perrone was found not guilty, a man in the audience threw up a bunch of these passbooks they called South African passbooks, yelled out "murderers, murderers." He was taken out of the courtroom.
And Jason LeOne, 18 years old, have all been found guilty of manslaughter in the second degree. They have also been found guilty of assault in the first degree. There were tears, absolute outcries from the families, hysterically crying when the verdict was announced on the three defendants. But 17-year-old Michael Perrone, the fourth defendant in this case, has been found not guilty of manslaughter, not guilty of second-degree assault, which he was charged with, and his family erupted in cries of joy. So a very mixed feeling here for the families involved, the pain clearly evident for the Lester family, the Kern family, and the LeOne family, but not for the Perrone family. The jury has been taken away. It's quite an emotional scene here. You can see behind me there are scores of court officers. There were at least 24 court officers inside the courtroom at the time and protecting the defendants. The defendants are still inside the courtroom. It is an extremely chaotic situation. You can see right there before me, that is some video taken earlier of the scene. You're looking at Scott Kern and his lawyer, Gabriel Leone, standing as Scott Kern was told that he had been found guilty of manslaughter in the death of Michael Griffith on the Belt Parkway. At that point, you are seeing no clear reaction on Scott's face, but his mother cried, "There is John Lester," standing. John Lester also found guilty of manslaughter and first-degree assault. That is Jason LeOne. He also found guilty today of manslaughter and first-degree assault. That is Stephen Murphy, Michael Perrone's attorney, who managed to get his client off on these very serious charges. I should tell you that manslaughter in the second degree carries a maximum penalty of 15 years in jail. The judge at this point does have the option of remanding the defendants and putting them in jail. We're not clear, obviously, at this point, whether or not he will do that or they will remain out on bail until sentencing. As I told you earlier, an extremely chaotic situation. When the verdict was announced, a number of what we consider, or what the court officers consider, radicals jumping up and screaming murderers. One of them put up a banner and the court officers literally had to drag these people out of the courtroom. We are told that the courtroom is now being cleared, and the defendants' lawyers have said that they will talk to the media after this is all over in a little quieter setting, and the special prosecutor, who has done his job, difficult as it may be, is expected to hold a news conference about half an hour from now, and we will be covering that. And we will bring you more details as we get them. Of course, there will be a lot of reaction, obviously, from the black community and other communities. Not a very happy reaction in Howard Beach tonight, I'm sure, but the black community has to be satisfied. I'm going back, showing you back here live now in the courtroom. That's a live shot, a lot of standing. You can see the defense table. You can see all the court officers. There is a wall of white surrounding the defense table to protect the defendants and their lawyers. They're sitting back down now. A relatively calm situation considering the magnitude of the charges which have been imposed on these defendants. As I just told you, manslaughter carries a maximum sentence of 15 years. You're looking here at Judge Thomas DeMacos, who kept a very tight rein on this courtroom during the trial and is doing his best to keep order in the courtroom right now. And he's being assisted by an unbelievable show of force, both inside and outside. We are told that there may be 200 to 300 police officers surrounding this courthouse to prevent any kind of trouble, and the court officers are doing their best to maintain order inside the courtroom. You're looking at a live shot right now outside. You can see the show of force there. Uniformed police officers. We are told there are scores more of undercover officers surrounding the courthouse, and there are also mounted patrol officers to prevent any kind of trouble. Although at this point, as I said, the black community has to be satisfied, I believe, with the verdict in this case. These three of the defendants were found guilty in the death of Michael Griffith on the Belt Parkway last December, and three of the defendants were found guilty in assaulting Cedric Sandiford, who they were accused of beating almost to death in an incident that has, as one person said, set race relations back years in this city. A very emotional scene here, as I've told you, and we will have more details as they are needed. Right now I'm reporting live from State Supreme Court in Queens. Ernie, back to you in case you have any questions.
All right, thank you, Sarah. It has been quite an evening as the long trial has come to an end. As Sarah reported, 3 of the 4 defendants found guilty tonight. We will have the full story and, of course, reaction to the controversial case later on. If there are any further developments, we will be on the air live to report them to you. For now, I'm Ernie Anastas. We'll see you later on this evening.
And to repeat, Michael Perrone was acquitted of manslaughter, riot, and assault.
Thank you. Excellent work covering the trial, and again tonight, and we will see you more at 11 o'clock. We'll have the latest details for you on the return of the verdict in the Howard Beach trial and all the reactions from Howard Beach, from the community of Howard Beach, from the people involved, tonight on News 4 at 11. I'm Tony Guida. We'll see you then.
This has been a special report from News 4 New York.
Trial, defend your client to the fullest. That's what caused this verdict, which stands, frankly, is not going to stand in all due respect, because there was absolutely no homicide attributable to anybody on this trial, and the injuries to Sandiford were sparse at best. And clients are feeling great pain and shock, disappointment and horror, and frankly, they really aren't able to react other than to be stunned by what happened here. They didn't expect it. They did nothing wrong, and they're amazed that sometimes there are injustice. You know, that's the problem with decent families and decent people. That's why all of these kids made statements. You know, the kids that went and told the truth are going to jail. The guy that went home and came and lied is going to stay home. That's the irony here. The families that believed in the law found out the hard way that, hey, sometimes these people in law enforcement aren't really there for your benefit. Sometimes they're really there to make a case because they need a case to satisfy their bosses, and that's what happened here.
Mr. Rubenstein, you said or suggested that the defendants were convicted because they lied, and Mr. Levinson, you were unhappy about the you said you were stymied, that your peremptory challenges were taken away. You say they would not have been convicted if you had an all-white jury?
No, I'm saying if I had the right to pick a jury without being influenced by and having my peremptory challenges taken away. There were several black jurors that we might have taken under all respects. However, the fact is that we were told we had to support reasons for it. And once you start doing that, you start breaking our resources. And our resources consist of 20 peremptory challenges, and I think that's a grounds for appeal.
Do you think race had anything to do
with what?
With the jury that was selected that did ultimately decide?
Yeah, I think that the prosecutor. I'm sorry, Dave. I didn't count it because, but I would like to count up the number of times Mr. Hines said NIG turned out to be all about. Everybody picked the jury and said racism has nothing to do with this case. We want to try it on the evidence and the facts, and then they tried it just the opposite. They tried it on racism. They wanted a racial verdict, and it was strictly based upon that prejudice, or that sense that there was prejudice here, and that was the cause of this incident, that I suggest to you good people that the verdict is. And I think the world will be very happy with this verdict, but in history we learn that sometimes when great injustices happen, that they're reversed. We saw it with the Vietnam War. Now we see people coming and they're being applauded as heroes. They're being understood for what they did. These young men are the scapegoats of a society that has neglected the minorities in this country, and this is their payback for those politicians who have done nothing. They sacrificed these 3 young boys to satisfy their own political needs and satisfy a country that maybe feels a little guilty.
All right, and we're going to break into this live video with Ron Rubenstein, who's explaining some of the reaction here. And here with me live on camera is Brian Levinson, who represents John Lester. And how is Mr. Lester feeling right now?
He's feeling a hell of a lot better than I am. I'm very disappointed. He's a terrific kid. He grabbed me and said, "Listen, Brian, you did terrific. I know you did wonderfully for me, and they just didn't understand. And I got convicted for something I didn't do." That's what he did, and he says, "I know you'll take care of it on appeal," and I certainly will.
How soon do you expect to put the appeal process in action?
Well, that has to take place after sentence as a matter of law. So what we're going to do is when he's sentenced on this case on the 20th of January, then we will make arrangements to file a notice of appeal within a few days.
Now, John Lester was found guilty on what charges?
He was found guilty on the manslaughter, but not guilty on the attempted murder. Guilty on assault 1. I felt there was never the injury that amounted to assault 1 in this case. That was it. He was acquitted of the rioting charges. The basic thing of the 2C felonies. That's where it is. He was acquitted of riot, as a matter of fact.
How many years?
Acquitted of inciting to riot.
How many years does he face?
He faces a maximum penalty of 5 to 15 years.
Ariana, throughout the trial, Cedric Sandiford had identified John Lester as being one of the kids that kept beating him as he pleaded, "Please, oh God, don't kill me. I have a son old like you."
I don't know if the jury actually believed that his identification was good. I think they just convicted all of them on that assault, that they all must have participated, the acting in concert theory. But the fact is that he identified somebody who was 14 years old, blonde, blue-eyed, etc., and that clearly wasn't John Lester. And he had added Lester's name afterwards, and there had never been any identification, no lineup, no photo spread, nothing. So it was strictly an acting in concert type of conviction, and I think it was a compromise. And I think we got ruined with the judge's instruction on Saturday and again this afternoon.
All right, thank you, Brian Levinson. We're going to go back now to the news conference where Gabriel Leone, the representative of Scott Kern, is now talking to us, and there is Mr. Leone.
Heard his whole statement. If the judge would have allowed me to bring that whole statement out, the jury would then have heard the exact words of Scott Kern. I would have been fully allowed to cross-examine the police officer as to the full statement of Scott Kern, and I wasn't able to do that. And the only thing I was allowed to do under this joint trial situation was to put Mr. Kern on in a limited manner, and not in the manner in which, had I gone to trial by myself with my own client, been able to do. I wasn't able to do that. And I feel that that was a fundamental right that I had to do it, but because of judicial economy on the sides of the courts, we had a joint trial. But when it came to the Attorney General of this state appointing Mr. Hines, he wasn't given a budget. He was given a check signed with no amount in it, so that he could bring experts in from Detroit. He could bring forensic psychiatrists in. He could prevent witnesses from testifying. Originally in this case, I had demanded an immediate trial. There were 10 defendants. I said I would go to trial with all 10 defendants so that each young man could get on that witness stand and testify as to what happened. And I tell you right now, 4 of those people who gave statements to the police exculpated Scott Kern. But because they have pending indictments against them, their attorneys rightfully said, Mr. Leone, you subpoena my client, he's going to take the Fifth Amendment. Mr. Hines, in some halfway manner, attempted to call 4 of these defendants, who I wanted to testify, to the stand to testify, and they all took the Fifth Amendment. And then said, well, geez, you know, these guys won't come and testify. Why didn't he give them immunity? He gave Robert Riley immunity. Right, Robert Riley now, and I will be here the day Robert Riley is sentenced. And he probably won't be sentenced until after all of these trials are over with. Yeah, that's one of our frustrations. Because I want to make sure Robert Riley goes to jail.
You got to ask yourself this. Riley is the one that drove people to the pizzeria. Riley's the fellow that had the bat. Riley's the fellow that was in the car. If anybody was chasing Michael Griffith, it was Riley. He was the closest one to him when Griffith entered the Parkway. If he's going to get a youthful offender and face a maximum of 4 years in jail, I suggest and I ask you good people to join with us to make sure that these defendants, who even on the verdict of this jury, if you accept it, were so much less responsible that I think that the public should demand that these defendants be treated at least equal, or if not kinder, than Riley.
All right, and that is Ronald Rubenstein, the attorney for Jason LeDone, live discussing Robert Riley, who's a very controversial figure here. Here on the outside, we have Bob Gilmartin, our reporter for News at 10, who's been helping me with the coverage of this trial, and also Dave Walker. And Bob...
Well, I asked for a hearing. I asked that the managing editor from the Daily News be subpoenaed in for the hearing, and I asked that Mr. Mark Friedman come in for the hearing. I think that the situation that has occurred is obviously this juror had already been sworn in, and at that time negotiating with an agent after being sworn in creates the impressions that maybe improprieties did occur here. No improprieties may have occurred, But however, to deny us the opportunity and to deny the public the opportunity to at least know that justice isn't being sold here in this case, and that people aren't rendering decisions based on what they feel will be best in the interest of selling books, movies, or newspaper articles about this. I think we have a right to know that, and I think that the public has a right to know that, so that they have confidence in our system.
So, but the judge denied the motion.
The judge said he was not going to grant us a motion based on some hearsay from some newspaper article.
I'm not going to discuss anything that happened in the Daily News, story in the Daily News.
And Channel 5 has issued a statement saying producer Friedman's actions were a violation of station policy. He has been suspended pending a full review.
The fact that this conviction came in does not indicate that the system worked to you, sir?
The system has never worked for the black and Latino community. All right, it has worked for other people, but it never has worked for the black and Latino community. We have not found justice in this criminal justice system. As far as we're concerned, this whole system needs to be revamped.
This one particular aspect of the Howard Beach case is over. There are other defendants still to go to trial. What is the overall message that came out of the Howard Beach verdicts tonight to you and to, if you can speculate, to the black community?
Well, the only thing I can say about that is we will continue to organize. We will be present for the trial whenever it starts, all right? And we hope that we'll get a better verdict at that time than we did this time.
And your reaction finally to Mr. Perone being found not guilty on all the counts?
Well, we're hoping that maybe the Justice Department will take up the case and try him for civil rights violations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walker. A small sampling of the reaction of the black community. Again, many of the black activists who have been here almost since day one on this trial were not able to come tonight because of their arrest. Kelly, anything you could add?
Well, what I'd like to add is right behind us here, I've just noticed that we have the Harlem State Senator David Patterson. What kind of implications does this kind of trial have with its outcome?
I think we have to look at the sentencing. These individuals could be youthful offenders and receive absolutely no time for a murder that was committed a year ago. This was an intentional murder. A mob screaming killed them, and then the death of Michael Griffith. I don't understand why an intentional murder in the second-degree verdict wasn't found.
All right, Senator Patterson, Senator Patterson, we are going to break right now. We will be coming back. We'd like you to stay with us. Let's go back to the studio. Kelly Wright reporting live from Queens Supreme Court.
All right, Kelly, if you could hang on for just a minute, I've got a question for you. Obviously, as Bob had mentioned, when the verdict was read, there were some outbursts in the courtroom. Security has been beefed up throughout this trial for fear that there would be some problems. What is it like in the courthouse right now?
Inside the courthouse, it's bare. The press conference is now breaking up. There's a lot of commotion, but that commotion is by us, the journalists, the media. There is virtually no type of activity happening outside. Things have been very quiet for right now.
Okay, Kelly, thank you very much. There is still much more ahead tonight, of course, on the news at 10.